An experiment demonstrated the rapid degradation of a credit card upon exposure to acetone, nail polish remover. After 30 minutes of immersion, a credit card revealed its internal structure, including the antenna strip and central chip. Despite this physical decomposition, the card's contactless transaction functionality remained intact, underscoring the critical role of the integrated antenna. Credit cards incorporate various covert technologies, one of which originated from a highly classified CIA counterintelligence operation. This discussion will explore these hidden features and assess their security implications, including an attempt to misappropriate $10,000 from a locked iPhone belonging to MKBHD. In 1945, following World War II, a group of Soviet schoolchildren presented the U.S. ambassador to the Soviet Union with a carved wooden plaque depicting the Great Seal of the United States. This plaque was subsequently displayed in the ambassador's office. Unbeknownst to U.S. counterintelligence for several years, it contained a clandestine listening device that operated without an internal power source. By 1951, an operator at the nearby British Embassy detected English-language transmissions emanating from the U.S. ambassador's residence. Despite repeated inspections, American personnel failed to locate the bugging device. In 1952, a radio frequency signal was ultimately traced to the ambassador's office.
Upon identifying the plaque as the source of the signal, specialists disassembled it and discovered the eavesdropping device, colloquially known as the Thing. This device featured a minimalist design, comprising an antenna connected to a small copper cavity. Lacking an internal power supply, it operated only when remotely activated by a radio frequency, or RF, signal. During simulated operation, the device emitted a strong signal at approximately 900 MHz. This frequency represented its resonant frequency, where the electric field of the incident RF wave induced alternating current in the antenna, facilitating a robust signal retransmission. The resonant frequency is inherently dependent on the device's electrical characteristics, such as capacitance. Functioning as a highly tuned resonant cavity, analogous to a radio tuning fork, the device responded to ambient sound. Acoustic vibrations within the room caused a diaphragm to oscillate, altering the capacitance between its plates and, consequently, its resonant frequency. A displacement of merely 10 nanometers was sufficient to induce this frequency shift, thereby modulating the amplitude of the retransmitted radio wave. The resultant return signal therefore consisted of the original radio wave enveloped by the acoustic information, a technique known as amplitude modulation, or AM, akin to AM radio broadcasting. The Soviets leveraged this methodology to clandestinely gather intelligence by transmitting an external radio signal and receiving the modulated return signal from the device. Developed by Soviet inventor Leon Theremin during his detention, the Thing represented a significant technological leap. Following its discovery, the CIA and the U.S. president maintained strict secrecy due to its advanced nature, which significantly surpassed contemporary American intelligence capabilities. The United States subsequently commenced covert development of an enhanced version of the device. Amidst the post-war economic boom in the United States, financial institutions identified an opportunity to streamline payments for high-value items, which traditionally necessitated cash or checks with cumbersome processing times. In 1958, Bank of America introduced Bank AmeriCard, the first universal credit card, enabling customers to make purchases on credit. By the end of the decade, 2 million cards were in circulation, accepted by over 20,000 merchants. Bank AmeriCard later evolved into Visa.
These early credit cards, however, faced two primary challenges. One, Processing speed. Each transaction necessitated merchants manually imprinting card information onto two slips, one for the customer, one for the bank. This process was inconvenient for both consumers and merchants, and banks had to visually verify transactions, potentially delaying merchant payments for several days. Security vulnerabilities. The slow processing inherent in this system created opportunities for fraudulent activity. Stolen or counterfeit cards could be used for purchases, and by the time banks detected the fraud days later, perpetrators had often absconded. By the late 1960s, credit card fraud losses amounted to $100 million annually for banks, approximately $1 billion in current value. To address these issues of speed and security, banks required a superior system. Concurrently, the CIA encountered a similar challenge in managing identity cards. In 1960, IBM engineer Forrest Parry was tasked with developing a more secure ID card for CIA operatives. Drawing inspiration from magnetic tape used in audio cassettes, Parry sought to affix magnetic strips to cards. Following numerous unsuccessful attempts, anecdotal evidence suggests his wife proposed using a clothes iron to bond the magnetic tape, a method that proved successful.
The magnetic strip operates on the principle of storing data as magnetized bits, binary zeros and ones. This can be visually demonstrated by sprinkling iron filings onto the strip, revealing the arrangement of data bits. This data is readily readable by a specialized device, which then displays information such as the cardholder's name and card number. The first magnetic stripe credit cards were implemented in 1970, substantially reducing transaction processing times and enabling banks to more swiftly identify and block suspicious payments. While initially appearing to resolve issues of speed and security, the magnetic stripe possessed a critical vulnerability. Saley, a sponsor of this content, offers eSIM solutions for seamless international connectivity. The Saley application allows users to select appropriate data plans across more than 200 destinations, thereby eliminating the need for insecure public Wi-Fi, physical SIM cards, or expensive roaming charges. The Saley Ultra package provides unlimited data along with additional benefits such as airport lounge access and online security tools. Revisiting credit card technology, data on the magnetic strip is not only readable but also rewritable. Writing this data onto a blank card facilitates the creation of an exact duplicate of an original card, displaying identical card number and cardholder name information.
The ease of card replication led to widespread fraudulent activity. Tony Sales, a notorious former fraudster, established an extensive network for collecting card information via skimming devices deployed in restaurants and bars. The static nature of magnetic stripe data allowed criminals to clone cards within seconds and repeatedly use them to withdraw funds before the legitimate cardholder detected the fraud. By the early 2000s, card fraud in the United Kingdom, primarily attributed to magnetic stripe cloning, resulted in annual losses exceeding £400 million. To counteract this escalating problem, major card networks collaboratively developed the EMV standard, a comprehensive set of specifications for secure card payments. This initiative resulted in the introduction of the EMV chip, commonly utilized with the chip and pin method. Unlike magnetic stripes, which store static information and transmit identical data for every transaction, EMV chips function as miniature computers, generating unique transactional data for each payment, thereby significantly enhancing security. Chip cards encrypt information using a secret key, known exclusively by the card itself and the issuing bank. When the chip is inserted, the reader transmits a message containing transaction details along with a long random number generated by the reader. The chip then employs its secret key to transform this message into a unique code, which it returns to the reader. The reader forwards this code along with the raw transaction details and the random number to the bank. The bank applies its own key to the raw data. If the result matches the code from the card, the transaction is authenticated and approved. This process significantly enhances chip card security for two primary reasons. Firstly, each transaction generates a new, unique code, thereby preventing the replication and reuse of transaction data. Secondly, chip cards are exceedingly difficult to counterfeit because the secret key is never disclosed during a transaction and is stored deep within the silicon memory cells of the chip. Extracting this secret key would necessitate physically opening the card, removing silicon layers, and bypassing numerous countermeasures designed to destroy data upon detecting tampering. While theoretically possible, this process requires extensive man-hours and hundreds of thousands of dollars in specialized equipment, rendering it practically unfeasible for all but the most high-value targets, such as a billionaire's credit card. With the transition from magnetic stripe cards to chip cards, the predominant fraud method shifted from card cloning. Consequently, banks integrated a 4-digit personal identification number, or PIN, with each chip card, known exclusively by the cardholder. However, PIN theft is not insurmountable, with various methods employed prior to card compromise, such as shoulder surfing at ATMs or the use of hidden cameras. While not excessively difficult, this approach is considerably more challenging than signature forgery. The introduction of chip and PIN was initially expected to eradicate certain forms of fraud. However, due to the United States' later adoption, these activities persisted there. Chip and PIN cards were introduced in the United Kingdom in 2003. Over the subsequent 7 years, counterfeit card fraud in the UK decreased by 63%, contributing to an overall 27% reduction in total card fraud. Conversely, during the same period, card fraud in the United States increased by 70%. It was not until 2013 that a major incident served as a wake-up call for the U.S. Criminals stole 40 million card numbers from the Target supermarket chain, using this information to create counterfeit cards and conduct transactions nationwide. The U.S. ultimately recognized the imperative to transition to chip and PIN. As EMV chip cards were more widely adopted in subsequent years, counterfeit card fraud in the U.S. decreased by 76%.
However, this enhanced security came at a cost. Transaction times more than doubled, adding approximately 10 seconds per transaction on average. While this figure may seem minor, when aggregated across all transactions nationwide, it represents a substantial collective delay. In the U.S. alone, chip and PIN adoption was estimated to have added approximately 116 million hours of queue time at checkout counters annually. This underscores why businesses are keenly focused on minimizing any friction in the spending process. For instance, online one-click payments can increase spending by nearly 30%. Consequently, financial institutions shifted their focus from security to speed, seeking solutions to reduce transaction times, aiming for near-instantaneous contactless transactions. This necessitated the ability to transmit a signal over a distance and receive a response at the speed of light.
Drawing parallels with the Soviet "the thing" device, this brings us back to CIA operations in the 1950s. During reverse engineering of the Soviet device, Americans identified a significant design flaw: its excessive sensitivity to perturbations. It required frequent tuning and recalibration whenever room temperature fluctuated substantially or loud noises occurred. The device was tuned to operate within a narrow frequency band. If the transmitted signal deviated too far from the resonant frequency, the amplitude changes induced by diaphragm movement became too subtle for detection. Consequently, sensitivity was achieved only within a confined region around the resonant frequency. The Americans embarked on developing a more robust device, less reliant on extremely precise frequencies. To achieve this, they re-envisioned radio waves, shifting from using them for sound modulation to leveraging them as a power source. Internally, they incorporated a rectifier, converting the alternating current from the antenna into direct current. This power was then used to energize a hearing aid amplifier with a sub-miniature microphone.
The amplified microphone output signal was routed back to the antenna, generating a modulated return signal that could be transmitted and received. The microphone, antenna, and other components were concealed within furniture. They experimented with hiding them inside hollow legs, even drilling holes along the length of furniture legs. To accomplish this, they infiltrated a furniture manufacturing plant, an astonishing feat. This project, dubbed Project Easy Chair, was subsequently employed by the CIA to reciprocate against the Soviets by installing their own listening devices in the Soviet embassy in The Hague.
It was not until the 1970s that Mario Cardullo, a former rocket engineer, applied this technology in a contemporary manner to address problems at toll plazas. Across the United States, vehicles had endured long queues for years to pay tolls. To accelerate this process and mitigate waiting times, Cardullo invented a small tag capable of remotely identifying vehicles. This tag comprised two primary components, a coil functioning as an antenna and a microchip. Analogous to the listening device, the antenna received radio waves upon passing through a toll booth. These waves induced an alternating current, which was routed through a diode to power the chip. The chip then toggled a series of transistors, subtly altering the current in the antenna. This action modulated the radio wave, encoding the tag's ID number, and the antenna transmitted this signal back to the reader at the toll booth. This process closely mirrored Cold War-era espionage devices, but instead of relying on sound to modulate waves, it utilized a small electronic circuit within the chip. This technology is known as radio frequency identification, or RFID. Today, it finds widespread application in toll booths, retail stores, and warehouses worldwide, as well as in credit cards. Modern credit cards also employ this technology, enabling contactless payments. However, credit cards feature a crucial distinction. While some other RFID devices operate at ranges of 10 meters or more, credit cards require a restricted operational range to prevent inadvertent remote transactions. Consequently, card providers had to devise methods to shorten the operating distance. The solution involved shifting from reliance on radio waves to utilizing magnetic fields. Within the card reader, a small coil is present. When an alternating current flows through this coil, it generates a fluctuating magnetic field. If a credit card is brought sufficiently close for this fluctuating magnetic field to intersect the card's antenna, it induces an alternating current within the antenna. This can be visually demonstrated with a specialized LED-equipped chip, illustrating that the chip requires no battery but receives all its power from the reader when in close proximity. This induced current passes through a diode to power the card's chip. The chip then subtly alters the current in its antenna, thereby modulating the magnetic field surrounding the antenna. The reader's coil detects this modulated signal, which carries the unique transaction code and subsequently transmits it to the bank. Cryptographically, this mechanism is analogous to chip and pin cards, but instead of metallic contact, the chip and reader communicate via a shared magnetic field. This technology is known as near-field communication, or NFC, and it forms the foundation for all current contactless credit cards. The initial introduction of contactless payment cards occurred in the mid-2000s, coinciding with the rollout of chip and pin technology. However, widespread adoption proved to be a more protracted process, particularly within the United States. This delay was characterized by a reciprocal hesitation. Consumers exercised caution. Financial institutions awaited sufficient retail infrastructure equipped with compatible card readers, while retailers, in turn, anticipated a critical mass of customers possessing contactless cards issued by banks. A significant shift in this dynamic occurred in 2020. The perceived risks associated with physical interaction, such as touching keypads and handing over cards, suddenly escalated. Contactless payment offered a solution by enabling users to entirely circumvent physical contact.
Consequently, global contactless transactions surged by over 40% during the first 3 months of 2020, with contactless payments in the U.S. experiencing a remarkable 150% increase within the same year.
Upon the advent of contactless payments, an initial apprehension revolved around the potential for unauthorized scanning of cards through a user's pocket. Devices such as the Flipper Zero or standard NFC reader applications can indeed readily extract the card number and expiration date from a contactless card with minimal proximity. However, for the purpose of credit card cloning fraud, this information possesses significantly limited utility. The chip's cryptographic secret key is never transmitted during any communication, and without it, card replication is impossible. While these card details could potentially be employed for online transactions, such operations typically necessitate the card verification value, a 3-digit security code not stored on the chip but physically printed on the card's reverse side. Acquisition of the CVV generally requires social engineering tactics. Furthermore, if an illicit actor were to achieve sufficient proximity to illicitly scan a card, they would likely also be able to photograph or video record the card to obtain the CVV from its physical surface.
A more readily executable form of contactless fraud is termed digital pickpocketing or ghost tapping, which necessitates the perpetrator being within approximately 2 centimeters of the victim's pocket. In most jurisdictions, however, contactless transactions are subject to an upper limit, restricting the maximum amount that can be compromised in a single transaction. For instance, in the United Kingdom, this limit has been increased to £100. The primary concern arises if such an act could be perpetrated thousands of times. An illustrative case occurred in Italy, where a 36-year-old woman was apprehended for illicitly extracting funds from unwitting tourists in crowded Roman thoroughfares. Densely populated environments are particularly susceptible to more sophisticated fraudulent schemes. The potential for embedding concealed contactless readers within confined public spaces, such as subway entrances, could facilitate the scanning of hundreds or even thousands of cards daily. While most nations impose a monetary cap on individual tap transactions, the United States notably lacks such a universal limit. Consequently, a single contactless transaction in the U.S. could potentially result in a user incurring losses amounting to thousands of dollars.
Mitigative strategies against digital pickpocketing include storing cards in a Faraday wallet or juxtaposing multiple cards to create signal interference, thereby impeding individual scanning. Nevertheless, these measures offer no protection if a card is lost or stolen. Financial institutions typically provide transaction notification services via mobile devices, which constitute an effective security protocol. Activating such notifications can significantly reduce susceptibility to contactless payment fraud, as users are promptly alerted to suspicious activity and can immediately contact their bank. A more advanced protective measure involves migrating all payment cards to a mobile wallet application on a smartphone. Within these digital wallets, actual card numbers are not stored, thereby preventing their direct theft. Even in the event of phone loss, the embedded cards remain secure, safeguarded by biometric authentication methods such as fingerprint or facial recognition. Mobile phones thus appear to embody an optimal fusion of transactional speed and robust security.
Notwithstanding these advancements, contactless payment technology has evolved considerably beyond its original design parameters. Over the past 2 decades, numerous features have been integrated, some primarily for security enhancements and others for increased user convenience, though this convenience frequently entails a corresponding security trade-off. Even with the ostensibly robust protection offered by mobile wallets, concerns persist regarding potential vulnerabilities that could permit unauthorized access to funds. For instance, a documented experiment demonstrated the feasibility of extracting $10,000 from a locked iPhone using a standard payment terminal. thereby underscoring the inherent complexity and persistent challenges in ensuring the comprehensive security of modern payment systems.